Good evening, Zambia. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us this evening. Welcome to a special presentation of TV Bakwetu with me, Frank Saliki. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you've had a wonderful day in everything that you have done today. Just before we start the broadcast, I would just like to make an appeal as usual. If you would like to support TV Bakwetu, you could buy some stars. To keep us coming on every week and to share our expertise, to share our thoughts with you. It's important that we're sharing this information that we're learning together. I usually come in on a Thursday for my motivational slot, or on a Sunday afternoon for my motivational slot. But this for me is very important. I thought this evening I just have to come on. I just have to come on and really share my thoughts on a few issues that are going on in our country. So one of the things that was really close to my heart is the recruitment of 11,000 health workers. That was a big thing. That was a big thing. A lot of health workers had not been recruited for a lot of years, and that left a lot of gaps in our hospitals. It did not have enough staff workers. Places in rural areas just never had enough staff, never have enough health workers in those facilities. And over the last few, and then we had the announcement there's going to be a recruitment of over 11,000 health workers, and that's great news. Just that is great news. But there's something that for me that's been really disturbing, and the narrative that is being sent out there is that's not enough. And the message that so many people are given is we've got over 100,000 health workers who are unemployed. So employing 11,000 really does not make a difference. But we have to look at where the problem started. Over the last 10 years, not enough health workers were employed. This is a fact. There's so many nurses I know back home who just never went into employment, who never got the job. The same people who did not employ these people are now sitting there and telling us 11,000 is not enough because there's so many people out there who have not got jobs. And in order to look at problems, we have to look at the genesis of the problem. We have to look at the genesis of the problem. What is the genesis of this problem? The genesis of this problem is that not enough health workers were recruited during the PF regime. Not enough health workers were recruited. Hence, we've got the amount of unemployed health workers that we've got at the present time. And so many people are expecting the new government to do something in 7-8 months. That's a government that the previous government that had 10 years could not do the said things. For me, my dear friends, what we have to look at is what are people's agendas? Why are people saying what they're saying? We can't hide away from the fact that there's 11,000 and there's 109,000 unemployed health workers. And yes, and if you do the maths, probably that works out 1 in 10 person is going to get a job from their advert. But the new Dawn government has to start from somewhere. They can't come into power and employ everyone. The first thing we have to start, and this has been well publicized, is the Ministry of Health. The corruption that has been at the Ministry of Health has been astronomical. The Ministry of Health has been a cash cow was a cash cow for the PF government, was a cash cow for the MMD government. So the Ministry of Health has always been a cash cow. There's always been so much money that's been there. And over the last 10, 11 years, that money was not spent to where it was supposed to be spent. We saw a few weeks ago where the auditor's report found that some hospitals, some people on the payroll did not exist. So some on the books it said a place had 166 people, but actually the people who worked there were 120 something. So there were people who were being paid by the Ministry of Health, but they were not working for the Ministry of Health. But these people are being paid on the Ministry of Health payroll. So in those people, if those people go on the Ministry of Health payroll, that means the government did not have enough money to pay the real health workers who were needed. So the people who needed to be employed, and given jobs to several people were not given those jobs. And that money was then directed to other areas. They were directed to other people. So there we have a problem of money that was wasted on, not on staff, but on giving Ministry of Health money to somebody who's not working for the Ministry of Health. So instead of money going to employing somebody to work for the Ministry of Health, it was used to pay somebody else who's not working for the Ministry of Health. Instead of money being used to buy cancer drugs. It was used to pay somebody who's not working for the Ministry of Health. And they found a deal. They found a cheap deal. They found a deal, paid again more of their own people, and they gave our people expired medication. I always say this, I always compare this, the honeybee scandal, I always compare it to the fact that, it's almost like poisoning water. It's almost like I turn the tap on and I put poison in the pipes. So that money, they try to find every loophole to find everything that was cheap to keep money in their pocket. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is, yes, 11,000 might look like an insignificant amount compared to the number of health workers who are unemployed, but this is a starting point. This is a point where the New Dawn government have to start. 11,000 is the most amount of health workers who have been employed in Zambia at one particular time. At one time over the last 10 years, that is the highest amount. That is the highest amount of health workers. And the reality is we got so many health workers who are at home because they have not been employed over the years. And we got so many people in hospital. We got so many health workers in hospitals who are having to work a lot harder because they haven't got the numbers. Over the last 10 years, it wasn't the fact that there wasn't money in the Ministry of Health. There was money, but that money was not used for what it was intended to do. And in order for us to go forward as a country, we have to start asking these serious questions. We have to start asking, where does the money go? We have to start looking at all the ministries. How the Ministry of Health, how do you spend our money? Let us create a public body out there that is going to make every ministry accountable, and that every ministry is able to produce a report at the end of a financial year to explain their expenditures. Where have you spent your money? And I can't even believe this doesn't happen. For me, in my current job, I've been a budget holder. And at the end of the year, I have to explain. I have to explain how much money I have to explain where the money has gone. And if I've gone even 20 pounds over, somebody wants to know why I have gone 20 pounds over. What biggest belief for me is how somebody can go over millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, not kwacha, dollars. And nobody goes, you've gone way over budget. What are you spending this money on? So these are the things that we need to start highlighting if we're ever going to improve anything in our country. We need numbers. We spent this amount of money because we recruited this amount of staff last year, and we spent this amount of money because we bought this amount of drugs, we bought this drug and that drug and that drug. That every kwacha, every ngwe becomes accountable. That every ngwe becomes accountable. This is our money. The government are our health, our caretakers. It's our money. And they have to be accountable for the way they spend their money. And the previous regime have not been accountable for how they spent yours and my money. They've not been accountable for how they spent yours and your money. And they're still using this same amount of money. They're still using this money to spread propaganda, to talk about what is going on, to talk about what the government is not doing. There were people when the previous government was in power who were saying this government is not doing what it's supposed to do. 2 days after the new government was elected, they were already criticizing the government. My question really is, where were all these people when our people were being given expired medication? When were our people when all these on our marketeers were having to pay cadres. A pensioner who was not being paid by the government finds a little bit of money, starts a business, and the ruling party starts getting money off him. Where was the government to protect them? Where was the government to ensure that our hospitals had enough staff? I saw something that kind of made me chuckle, because somebody said, oh, we built the hospitals for you. All you had to do was put staff in it. No, you didn't build the hospitals. You didn't build the hospitals. The Chinese gave you money and they told you what to do with that money. That is a Chinese policy. For them, they lend money and they'll probably tell you, this is what you're going to do, and they help you build something. The money is going to go to build that hospital, because they want something to have if you don't pay your debt. They want something that they can say, we're going to run this. So all the hospitals were built using debt that we need to pay back, that you and me will need to pay back. But what is important in all what we do is, how do we make sure our health system functions properly? How do we make sure that our health system has enough staff? How do we make sure that our health system is not being corrupted? How do we make sure that our people do not miss out, that they do not go to the hospital and they don't get the right medication? This is something that we need to strive of. It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay for a child to go to the hospital and die because there's no medication there. It's not okay for the child to go to the hospital and die because staff at that hospital are selling that medication instead of just using it for what it's supposed to be used. It's not okay. It's not okay that our health workers we're being told you have to volunteer. Our health workers were volunteering. I know people have volunteered in our health system for the last 4 years. They've not been on payroll. They've been volunteering as nurses. They've been volunteering as pharmacists. And I remember when it was suggested a few months ago that the government might ask people to volunteer, and there was a complete uproar because the government mentioned they might ask people to volunteer for 2 years. There was a complete uproar. Yes, rightly so. But however, people forgot to mention that there were people who have been volunteering for 5 years. For 5 years without a job. Our health system is ours. I would like to think, if my friends in Zambia, if my family go in Zambia, I would like to think they'll have a health system that is going to serve them, is going to give them what they need, is going to have the equipment that they need, is going to have the staff that they need, is going to have staff who are properly trained and motivated. This is a thing that you have about having medical staff volunteering for a long time. Eventually, that motivation runs out. I want to be paid. I can't be coming here just working. And if somebody's volunteering as well, their mind is where? They're thinking about, I need to make money. So they're not thinking about how can I help this patient get better? They're thinking, I need to get away from here at 16 hours so that I can go to my part-time job and make my money so that I can have something to eat tonight. My friends, it's unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. There's so many people in positions where they can say, how can we improve our health sector? How can we improve our health sector? We've got ambassadors, we got first secretaries of trade who are based here in the UK or based in America, and it begs a question: what do they do? What do they do? Because you think about what other resources can they use to bring back home? Do they have meetings with the health secretary in the UK and say, what can we give? What can we take back home? What can we learn? Can we bring our young doctors so they can come and learn something from you? And after they've learned something from you, they can come back home and they will learn something new and we can develop. No, they go abroad as diplomats, they earn a lot of money, but they don't seem to be having the conversation that diplomats have. Why do you think the UK ambassador to Zambia seems to be always at State House? Why do you think the Swedish ambassador to Zambia is always at State House? Why do you think all these European ambassadors seem to be hanging around at State House? Because they're not in Zambia to play. They're not in Zambia to party. They're in Zambia to benefit their country. And every country sends ambassadors to those countries, not because it's fun, not because they want to make money, because they want to build relationships. They want to make trade deals in those countries. Do you know, I discovered a few months ago, because a friend of mine who's actually British brought some honey when she came visiting, because she went to one of the supermarket and she said, this is Zambian honey. And I remember thinking, why are we not utilizing this? Why are we not using this? Listen, it's small little things. There's mangoes that come here. There's mangoes that come here, and I tell you, the British people love their mangoes, and they just jump on it and it goes, and it's not as good as a mango that we have back home. All that mango just get thrown away. We haven't got that. Is business, that is money, that is resources, but we have not come up with a way that we can use to make sure that all the things that we have are sent. If you think about the UK best place, we import everything here. Import everything. Bananas come from South America. Oranges come from Spain. Everything, most of the food that we have here, we import. And we've got our diplomats who come to this country, and they never have those discussions, never make sure that we can start importing a lot of the things that we have in our country. A lot of things that go to West can be a resource for our country. So that will be another area that the government can look at. If you're an ambassador, what are you giving? What have you learned? If you are Secretary of Trade, if you're First Secretary, Trade, what trade deal have you done? What have you learned? Because it's something that is so, for me, having worked in the health industry, I can sit around and think, why can't somebody have a discussion? Why can't I have a bilateral agreement between Zambia and the UK? And you can create something that is amazing. You can create a lot of initiatives there. You can ask them, you can sponsor students to come in the UK, and they learn and they come back and they teach people back home. Also, you can have some of the students, the British student, come to Zambia and learn from there and see how the health system is working there, and probably share some lessons, share some experiences. Then you're creating an industry, you're creating a health sector that is going to be successful. As I've said, I've done clinical governance, and some of the things that I hear is a horror show. For example, how do you run out of medication? How do you run out of medication in the middle of an operation? Because that's something you have to think about, how much medication we got in the hospital, right? If you went back home, you're hungry, you're thinking, and you go home and they say, oh, there's no mini meal. You're going to ask, how come you didn't tell me we would run out of mini meal? How do you run out of medicine in a hospital? So those are the things that we have to constantly look at. So when people start to criticize, when we are criticizing, we have to look at how much it's been broken. We can't expect something that has taken 10, 11, 12 years to be broken, to be fixed in 7, 8 months. It's never going to be happen. But here's the thing, it can be fixed. It can be fixed. Anything that is broken can be fixed. Anything that is broken can be fixed. I took over a position, and there was a lot of things that were going on, that were going wrong. And you know what? I sat down and I came up with solutions of how things could be done better, and everything improved. And everything improved. But we have to reach an agreement that things have been done so badly. One, we had a government that just used the Ministry of Health as a cash cow, did not care, did not care, did not care how the hospitals were being run. Have you ever wondered why do the politicians not go to Zambian hospital? Why is it that when the president gets ill, he'll get on an aeroplane and go to another country? Why don't they go to the hospitals? Why is it when any high-ranking politician, when they get ill, they fly them out of the country very, very quickly? Why don't they go to the hospital? Have you ever asked that question? Why don't they go to the hospital? It's their country. They're running the country, and the hospitals, they're responsible for them. Why are they not going to them? Because they know they're not good enough. Because they know they're not good enough. And what we've been left with, my friends, is hospitals that are not good enough. Because the people who run the country can't even go in those hospitals. Here in this country, no matter the high-ranking politicians have been to hospitals with common people, celebrities have been to hospitals with common people. Why? Because the hospitals are good enough. But what we leave our people with are hospitals that are simply not good enough. They don't have the right, they don't have the medication that you use. You don't have the right equipment. If you have an MRI scan, it doesn't come back until 5 days later. 5 days later. If it's a serious incident, it's not going to be diagnosed until 5 days. Because we talked about how many hospitals we've built. We've not invented this. We've not invested enough. We absolutely have not invested enough in our hospitals. We need to create a hospital. We need to create a hospital that everyone can go in there. And you know, sometimes we hear that our politician has gone to this country for treatment. We should be saying, why are you not going to the hospital that we go to? Why should you have the privilege to go and have better healthcare? Why don't you give us better healthcare in this country? Why don't we have better healthcare in this country? That's a question we have to ask. You know, I don't have to, if I was, touch wood, if I was to take my little boy to the hospital for any reason, I won't have to worry. I won't have to worry. And my friends, I speak for you. I won't have to worry because I know that the hospital I'm taking them, they're going to be medication, they're going to be staff. We're going to look after them. And if he fell and he need an MRI scan, I know that he's going to have an MRI scan and he's going to have the result within 5 minutes. And we won't have to wait 5 days to 2 weeks. Oh, I won't have to hear there's no MRI scan. You probably need to go to another country that is 200 kilometers away. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And we have to reach a point as Zambian people where we say we want our standard raised, and there's certain things we're never going to accept anymore. The people who got us to this mess are sat there going, look what the other people are doing. Listen, they got our money. They took our money out of the Ministry of Health. They put expired drugs for cancer patients. Cancer patients getting expired drugs. They think they're getting treatment, but they're not getting treated because the drugs that they're having do not work. And the people who are involved are just walking around as we speak. Scan at Kitwe Central Hospital has been down for years. down for years. How does that happen? Seriously, how does that happen? Why doesn't anybody break every single door down to make sure that that thing is fixed? How does anyone go to bed that night and sleep and think, I went to work today and the scanner is broken and I'm just going to lie there? Why doesn't anybody literally break every door that they need to break that that thing is fixed? My friends, we need to reach a point where certain things we just simply don't accept. It's unacceptable. I remember when one of my cousins was ill. She was going from Chingola. There was no scan in Chingola. And then she had to go to Kitwe for this scan. And then this scan in Kitwe was not even working. Like, how can you have one scanner or two scanners in the entirety of the Copperbelt province? And we say we've got a health system. How can we have two MRI scanners among how many towns, cities in the Copperbelt? 9, 8? And we say we've got a health system. So if somebody needs a scan, it needs to be scanned today in Luansha, where are they going to go? Where are they going to be scanned? Nowhere in the Copperbelt. Are they going to be taken to Lusaka? Probably by the time they get to there, the scanner won't be working there either. So we got hospitals with equipment that do not work, and people use that money to spend that money somewhere else. And that's why you've got scanners that are broken for years. My friends, as a country, we need to reach a point where there are certain standards we simply do not accept. It's unacceptable that a scanner can be broken for a year. Listen, it's unacceptable if a scanner dies for one day and it's not fixed. In my previous role, if an equipment was broken in one day, I'll be running around. I want that fixed, not tomorrow. I want it fixed in the next 10 minutes. I'll be phoning every people around. We'll be trying to get the parts that we need to get there because it's an important part of the hospital. And having a hospital without a working scanner simply means no scans can be done. As simple as that. It can't do the work. People cannot diagnose what we need. And people die in our country a lot of times because of slow diagnosis. Because we got equipment that do not work. And we got people probably with their hands behind the Chiwamba. Ooh. Why doesn't it not work? Listen, a hospital should not have an MRI scan that's not working even for 2 hours. So then that shows we need to do some very, very different things. Clinical governance is something that we need to look at. We need to look at how we look at the hospital, who runs the hospitals. Let the nurses do the running around and looking after the patients. Let's recruit some administrators who are able to make sure that they're looking at the functionality of the hospital, like everything else is working. The patients are coming in, they're going to the right places, all the equipment are working. I've worked in the hospital here in the UK ever since I left university, and my role has been that. I've been hospital administrator in various roles. I've worked in human resources. I've worked on the ward as a ward clerk. A very integral part of running a successful healthcare system is having the nurses who are up to the job, having the healthcare workers who are up to the job, and having an administrative team that understands what is going on in the hospital and they're able to run around. That when the doctor is coming in the hospital to do an operation, an administrator has already looked at how much medication is there. It's done the administrative side of it, and the doctor just has to have a quick look at that. That's how we run the hospital. And that's why I was saying we've got so many people, first secretary trades. Those are the things that they have to be looking at. to say, you know what, I want to see how the hospital is run in this country. Then compare what's the best health system. Then say, how can we implement this in our country? Then being able to use what we learn in this country to use it back home so that we benefit our people. Most of the time, when people think of us abroad, they think we just forgotten our country. No. And most of the time, people think we're criticizing our country. No, we're not. What we're doing is we've found a way to make things work better. And we are trying to educate our people to say there is a way of doing things better. There's a way of improving things, and there's a way of doing things more efficiently. There's a way of doing things more efficiently. There's a way of ensuring that our health system is going to serve our people, both in the urban areas and in the rural areas. Don't even get me started about the rural areas. The rural areas got a very short straw. If you think healthcare in the town or city you live in is diabolical, try and live Kwamangango, or somewhere in northwestern province, deep in the rural area, or somewhere in the eastern province, or somewhere in northern province. Anywhere you can think about that is rural. There it gets even more diabolical. And this is where, my friends, when it comes to money being stolen from for our Ministry of Health, when it comes to our money being stolen, it means they can't build new equipment. They can't have new equipment in those rural areas. That means they can't buy new scanners. And that's why you find the Copper Belt has got 1 or 2 scanners, because the money has not been used to buy scanners. You find an overstretched workforce because over the last 10 years, not enough health workers have been employed. Or by the way, if you knew somebody in government, you were probably employed. If you didn't know anyone, you were not. If you were not part of the ruling party, you probably were not. And these are the things, my friends, where we have to reach a point in our lives where our colors do not divide us. We have to reach a point to say, you know what, my neighbor can support UPND and I can support PF, and we can get on together because we've probably got different of opinion. It's allowed. It's allowed. Our colors should not be a symbol of division. Our colors should be a symbol of individuality. No two people will always have the same opinion on a matter. Married couples don't always agree all the time. Twin brothers and sisters don't always agree all the time. Mothers and children, parents and children don't always agree all the time. But we've let the colors of the political party become so powerful that people were willing to overlook the injustice that was being done to the Zambian people. People were willing to overlook the injustice that was being done to the Zambian people because their party was in power. We have to reach a point where we say, I voted for you, but what you're doing is wrong and I don't agree with it because it does not benefit my neighbor. Because when you go to the hospital, guess what? If there's no hospital if there's no medication in the hospital, guess what? Whether you're a UPND, whether you're an MMD, whether you are PF, whether you PBZ, whatever you are, there's not going to be medication for you. If there's a shortage of food, whatever political party you are, the chances are you're not going to have food. So then we spend all the time, all the energy fighting amongst ourselves instead of looking at what's so important. Pantumailo, umwana wenu akabwala. era mukamutwale ku kipatala era bakamyema tekuli omuti. Era omukalanda ine te abanavotere tefe navotelef. Doesn't matter. My friends, it doesn't matter. Colors of the political parties should never divide us. They give us individuality. And in a democracy, we're going to have that individuality. But if we just take the colors too seriously, we then ignore the wrongs that have been done to our people. Bambuya bariawa pension. She waited for a long time. Then she was not paid. Then our children put a little money together and then they gave them some money and said, Kabir in market. It'll be about PF by that in the fire blendi pida. And then we closed our eyes to that. And we moved on. Today, the same people are standing up and say, have you seen what this government is not doing anything at all? These are the people who are collecting, who are taking money off hard-working Zambian people. We have to reach a point where we say, you know what, that's enough. The PF was not given 2 days to get it right. The PF not given 8 months to get it right. The PF had over 10 years. The PF had 10 years to get it right. And they never did. And we're looking at the broken health system, as broken as it has ever been. As broken as it has ever been. And people are telling us, oh, 11,000 people, only 11,000 people have been employed. That's not enough. And the people who are saying this are the people who are not employing your children. We need to understand and really evaluate these matters. There are people who are constantly at the moment criticizing the government for what they're doing. We're not in election here. This is not an election year. But there are some political parties from day one, they went in for the kill. They're going to criticize. But who are they harming? They're harming ours. They're harming our people. They're harming you and me. They're harming our relatives. So in everything that we do, my friends, let us always remember, analyze it. Analyze the situation. Look at what has happened. I think people always say, oh, but everybody always talk about the PF. In order to solve any problem and to understand any problem, we have to ask 3 questions. Where we come from? Why are we here? What has brought us here? What have we done to get here? What actions came before the results we're seeing now? Never forgetting that. Then you say, where do we go from here? And at the moment, the government is asking the last question, where do we go from here? We've worked out how we've got there. We're asking another question, where can we go from here? We've seen a lot of things done. We've seen the identification of ghost workers. That is a discussion that was had yesterday. Things need to be digital. We need to go away from paperwork. We need to look at who works there. We need to have quick access to information, and we need to then be able to ring, and people could say, you know what, I hear you've got nurse Mwansa at your hospital. Do they work there? Somebody gives you an answer within two seconds. We need to be able to have that kind of access, that kind of information, and also being able to get hospitals to send the information, the staff information every 3 months, every quarter of the year to the ministry to just say, this is what we got. So my friends, there's a lot of things when it comes to where change is going to be. There's so many people who are looking for employment. There's so many people who have gone through difficult times. And yes, we want to change, and it's a change that we we spoke about here on TV Bakwetu. And I can tell you, for me, I never used to talk politics, never did all of that. But the suffering that our Zambian people, the suffering that you back home went through, for me, that was enough. I can't, for me, it breaks my heart when I think there's a child who's going to go, there's a child who's my son's age who's going to go to the hospital and there's not going to be medication. There was a child who's my son's age who went to the hospital and they were given expired medication because people decided to use our health system as a cash cow, because people decided to use the Ministry of Health that was there to serve you and me as a cash cow. And the same people now today have turned around and have said 11,000 is not enough. 11,000 only seems it's not enough now simply because they never recruited. They never recruited enough staff over the last 10 years. And that's why we got so many gaps. That's why you have people who finished 5-7 years ago still not employed. It's very unacceptable. I think we have to watch the narrative. It's important that we watch what narrative people are given, where they're trying to steer us to. They destroyed our economy, and they're trying to make sure that what this government is going to do for you and for me does not work. If we do not back this government, if we do not back this government and make sure that we support the strategies and we ask the right questions and we ask where we are with things, we're going to find ourselves in a very difficult position, because we're going to find all these other political parties who are saying they're not doing the job. They're going to get a lot more people. And for the government of H7, what I would say, there's something, Mr. President, that you promised at the start of your presidency, and that was you're going to communicate a lot more to the people. You're going to have a lot more interviews with the media. I think we need that. We need that from you. There are a lot of us who understand certain things when they have been discussed. We understand those things, but what we need is clarity. What we need is clarity of why things have been done the way they've been done. So, for example, the example I can give is the fuel prices. It'll be quite good to understand why things have been done the way they've been done. Because for some of us, we understand that. We understand why it had to be. Even here in the UK, the price of fuel has gone up. The price of electricity and gas have gone up. We're having to spend a lot more money than we were spending just a few months ago. So we understand that. But those things need clarity. And in terms of the Ministry of Health, things can change very quickly. We need to say, how can we move on from here? Clinical governance, an important part of an element. Use the skills, use the people who've got the skills. Let's find a way, how can we train people in clinical governance? Who can we send to other countries? Who do we have in other countries who can give us advice? So for me, if I get a call to say the Minister of Health needs advice on a particular on a particular subject, I don't have any problem to go, you know what, I'm serving my country. I'm not getting paid for it, but I'm serving my country. I can pick up the phone and I can ring and I can say, why don't we do that and the other and the other and the other, and look at that. We can do that. So let us use the people who've got the skills to improve our health system. Remember, if we want our economy to grow, we need a healthy workforce. We need a healthier population. And if we're getting people going to hospitals and not having the right medication, or medication not being there, or the right amount of medication has not been ordered because the hospital has not got an efficient hospital administrator who can track everything that is going on, we're not going to have a thriving workforce, because there's not going to be enough healthy people to work. So those are the things that we have to look at. If we are going to transform our lives, if we're going to transform our economy, if we're going to transform our if we're going to transform our health system. So for me, it's important we look at first clinical governance. Clinical governance has to be the first point of a first point of call. Second has to look at, for me, make sure the hospital's got medication. There's a different, there's enough medication, and create a proper audit of that medication so that if you get people who decide they're going to sell that medication, that can be traced back and we know who's doing what. Make sure that the things in the hospital are there to serve our people. So when we talk about the 11,000, let's not make sure that this has been the start. It was promised. It was promised. It was promised that 11,000 health workers were going to be recruited. And you know what everybody said? It was ambitious. People said it was ambitious. Now people are saying 11,000 is not enough. Make up your minds. Which one? Is it ambitious? Was it too ambitious or was it too little? You can decide. Make up your mind which way you're going to go. So these are the things that we do. To start off, a recruitment of 11,000 health workers was too much. Recruitment of 30,000 teachers was too much. Now the same people are saying it was not enough. Well, it is here now. It is here now. I think it's, for me, for you back home, that one thing that you have to understand is a well-staffed health system is going to serve you, and hospitals are there to serve you. And we hope and pray that we never get to go to the hospital, but having a hospital to say I can go to the hospital and I can have the right treatment is what is going to help you in a lot. That's going to help our people in a lot of ways. We can talk about the economy, and I'll leave that to Dr. Kasonso and Mr. Patrick Chulufia to talk about the economy. But my friends, a healthy population is what is going to help us get a healthy economy. This has been a special presentation from me, Frank Seliki, saying God bless you, God bless our country, and God bless your dream.